Live, live, live. Welcome. Have you ever thought you would go out and potentially catch 160 pounds of bass and catch over and possibly not win a tournament? Well, that was the situation that I just had at Lake Vermilion in the Class 6 Bass Champions Tour just yesterday on a Tuesday in Tower, Minnesota. So we're coming back where it all started, live from the garage where I started streaming way back when. We're trying something new, see how it works, and maybe we'll mix this in. But I wanted to kind of have my tackle ready, handy, show some stuff off because there's a lot that goes into catching 73 bass over a pound in an 8-hour period when you have to weigh and measure every single one of them and keep up that pace. So we're going to try going live from the garage. Hopefully the audio is good and everything's working here. Hopefully there's no weirdos in the street that go by. Yeah, heck of an event, Matt Priest. Absolutely. Brad Leitner had a great event, caught a few more pounds than me. What's up, Brad? I see you over on Instagram. Yeah, sounds good. Looks good. I got a little remote mic in, so hopefully it works good. As always, HellaBass Live presented by Arsenal Fishing. Arsenal Fishing had a big event. We'll talk about that at the Champions Tour and boosted by Prowess Lithium, which the batteries were integral to having a good tournament. Absolutely. Finish off my Diet Dew. And I can still do the comments. So Brian says, looks good, sounds good. Awesome. We're live streaming from the Slayness tonight. So we're gonna try things out here and show off some baits, talk about what we did, talk about the gear that was essential, and hopefully have a good time. Yeah, what was the hitch with the Starlink? Because that actually is a really good point. I was planning to stream, and I'm really bummed because the amount of fish I caught yesterday would have made for an absolutely epic, epic, epic stream. Like I was catching a fish on average every 8 minutes throughout the day. So the fact that the stream didn't work was a bummer. On Saturday, I fired up the Starlink in the boat. I even brought a pole so I could get higher in the sky. Seemed like it was working, like it was like seeing satellites and all that kind of stuff. But it was some kind of message where like it wasn't like it said I needed to like activate or refresh my subscription. And I had a plan, I had the data, I still had, but it's like it wouldn't authenticate with my account. And I sent a ticket to Starlink. I tried it on land. I tried different parts of the lake. It just never would. It would connect to my phone and my tablet, and everything would connect to this Starlink, but would say without internet. And it just never would go. And I couldn't. I tried rebooting it. I tried restarting it. I tried disconnecting and reconnecting and playing with settings, and nothing ever seemed to work. So I never could get connected with internet to the Starlink. And so there's definitely not cell phone signal up there to stream. And so the dream of streaming the first Classic Bass event was dead, which is a bummer because it would have been an epic, epic stream. Yes, damn it, Elon. Strongly worded support message to Elon. But I don't know. They got back to me yesterday morning with a support message after I sent a ticket on Saturday. And I just replied to what they asked for. Recommendations for Ohio bass fishing. Ugh, I've never been. I've never. That's one of the states I've never fished in. Cohen. I imagine it's post spawn there. It's probably grind. Senko's probably a good bet. Fry garters. Uh, that's interesting. A lot of the Starlink components are made in. It wasn't a hardware issue. I feel like it was a back end, like network software type issue. So hopefully we get that all resolved for lacrosse, because then you guys would have had the inside track because my app wasn't really working. Uh, where I was catching them early in the day, neither Marshall or myself had enough connectivity on the app to. What's up, Chuck? um, it would just we only 19 of my 42 fish actually got entered in the first half. They had to do a manual adjustment at halftime into the second half. So you probably, if you were following along, you thought I was like riding the suck bus with only 19 fish in the first half, which is still pretty good in most tournaments. But I would have been way down in the standings. But I actually had 90 pounds at the end of the first half. And so if you guys would have been able to watch the live stream, you would have been like, whoa, his score tracker is way off. So it would have given you guys an inside look into that. And I wasn't catching as many bass as some of these guys, but I was catching a better average quality, which made for some good. So it all started, like, I got up there, and I want to do this recap video because I just don't even know how I'm going to put all this into a tournament video. It's a wild amount of fish catches to think about editing and doing something with this footage. But I have it all on GoPro, so you can still see it later. But it's a daunting task to think about editing it at this point. But I'll get to it. Basically, so we could start practice at like 6 a.m. on Friday, on what was it, June 1st or May 31st or May 30th or whatever it was, and I didn't get up super early. I didn't think I needed a full 3.5 days being on Vermilion before. So I like didn't leave the house till like 7-ish in the morning, and was mostly packed up, threw some stuff in the truck, headed out 7 o'clock in the morning, got on the water about 11:45. Had to stop at Walmart, buy some long pants that I forgot to pack on the way up. And yeah, got out at 11:45. I probably had my first 3-pounder in the boat by noon. It didn't take me but about 10 or 15 minutes to figure out that they were spawning. Even in a place where I couldn't see the bottom, I could tell that what they were doing. So I started the first stretch I actually stopped on was a place that I fished in the afternoon that was pretty good for me. And so I started to hop around from there and kind of test things to see what was going on and slowly expanding. But it turned out like I probably, in the beginning of practice, I messed around with some bedding fish and I tried catching them, and I was like sampling baits and seeing what was effective and what they would eat, what they wouldn't eat, and what was efficient for catching them. And yeah, thanks, Mike. Glad you like the visor. Um, yeah, it was going down. I think they were coming up as practice went on. So I ended up, by the afternoon of the second day of practice and the third day of practice, like it was like just putting, running on plane, going into places that I thought it would be good habitat, and cruising around on 7 with the Powerhouse Lithium and the Ultrex and looking for clusters. Really, you could find spawning fish just about anywhere, but it was pretty clear that you find the density to compete and hang because people are going to catch a lot of fish. So I wouldn't start marking them until I felt there was a decent cluster of fish, and then it would just be like, and every fish counts, right? You know, I wouldn't want to mark a random couple 1-pounders or pound and a halfers. But if there was 1 to 1.5 pounders around 2 to 3 pounders in a cluster, then absolutely, right, would want to, catch them. If I'm going to be there and I'm raptor down and I can make a pitch and catch them in 1 or 2 casts and add a pound, like that was the name of the game. Um, yeah, good reminder from David. Hit the thumbs up. It costs you nothing. Helps out the stream. Appreciate it. And so yeah, a lot of it. And then they do a lake split. So you have to you can't just find one stretch. You got to find stretches all over the lake. And then, practicing for the wind, we had mostly southerly winds in practice. And in the tournament, it was going to be a north or a west wind, and we were going to have clouds. So, marking the beds was key because it would be really hard to find them fast enough in the tournament with cloud cover and catch them fast enough if people marked them. So, I mean, I had hundreds and hundreds of beds marked. But you couldn't fish them all either. So you needed to have good density where you could be efficient and route it all out and that kind of stuff. But, one of the things is I was hard on my batteries all week, out for, I usually get out on the water around 6 and I'd usually get off around 7. So, 13 plus hours of being hard on the trolling motor and never had even close to running down my powerhouse lithiums. But, ran into Buddy around there and he had to come up next to me and tell me that his batteries were dead. He wanted to anchor down on the reef I was on and pick a few off just for something to do. So, an instance like that, having a good battery system was paramount. Practice in the tournament. I never had even crossed my mind that I would have battery issues because that's how reliable my system is. And in this format, if you would have been having battery issues, you would have been dead in the water. There would be no way you could compete with these guys if you weren't operating at peak efficiency. So it was a lot of sampling different areas, looking for clusters, and I thought I had some really good stretches, and I did have a really good stretch. The lake split kind of threw me off a little bit. They get kind of northwest from a section of Pine Island across to Moccasin Point, if you know where that is, and all that was northwest. That was in the morning, and then the afternoon was basically everything from the east half of Pike Island down south and south of Moccasin. And I was boat 60 out of 67. So late boat, but that was okay. Actually worked out pretty good to have an early or a late early. They swapped the field in the second half, so I got to go out first because they send us out I think they got us out maybe 10 minutes early, even the first one. And I am starting some of these questions. I'll get to them, guys. And so you got a little bit of free run time, but I didn't get to my spot till a little after 7, but just the way it worked. But in the second half, they don't blast you off till right at 11:30, so everybody's losing time. And by having an early boat draw, I got to be fishing sooner. I was actually fishing sooner in the second half than I was in the first half. And then at the end of the day, you have free run time, so you can fish right till 3:30, and then you get 15 minutes to get in. And on the east side of the lake, there was no place basically where you couldn't make it back in 15 minutes, even with a 55-mile-an-hour speed limit. So I kind of settled in that I had this one really good stretch that I really wanted to hit, and I knew I was going to have to make hay. I thought I would do okay in the first half with where I thought the lake split would be, and then I would make hay in the second half. But now I was I need to get him. That's my better water. Anyway, so in the morning, drew my Marshall, Caleb Anderson from Big Lake. I think he's must be a sophomore or junior. He's 16. I'm probably a sophomore at Big Lake high school angler. So shout out to him. He's actually texting me some photos right now because he was using his phone a lot for taking the pictures. And he did a great job. He was dialed in with the scale, and we had a system, and it was good. And we had a lot of fun in the boat. So we take off. I don't think I can. Well, let's answer a few questions. I'll get into the day. We kind of talked about. Maybe we should talk about prep. let me answer a few questions here. I've fished tournaments on this lake, 5 fish tournaments, some of them multi-day tournaments. I've probably fished 5 tournaments on this lake. But I've probably got somewhere between 30 and 50 days of experience on this lake. So it's a lake that I know pretty decent, but there's definitely anglers in the field that know this lake a whole lot better. Excuse me. I bet you with that remote mic that really picked up nicely. Um, and I was gonna say, oh yeah, fishing it. But yeah, so I've got a decent amount of experience. But there's guys like Ron Mayer and some guys that are from up there that have had hundreds and hundreds and hundreds of days on the lake. But I've never really ever been there during the spawn. So finding those areas was all new. Which format, 5 fish or every fish? Honestly, they both. I like them both. Honestly, they're different. I don't know that I have a favorite. To me, a 5 fish does not require nearly as much practice. The like I can show up with a half a day of practice or a day and a half or even no practice. All you need is to get a little clue at some point, and you can, you know, get one bite that points you in the direction. You need 5 bites, you can win the tournament. These every fish tournaments, the guys that came in with short practice had little to no chance unless they just happened to find 2 mega stretches on each side of the lake that they could mine. Like finding fish there was not time. There was no way you could win this tournament by finding the fish during the tournament and catching them. You basically had to have your fish pre-mapped out, or at least +% of them. Like there was no way that you had the time, especially with the conditions we had, that you could find them and catch them that fast. Because every time you made a decision that was wrong or stayed too long on a fish or took a penalty, you were sliding down the leaderboard. Kyle, why are you watching on Instagram and YouTube? So yeah, they have their pros and cons. But this was intense. Like every fish tournament, when it's a whack fest, is way more intense than a 5 fish tournament. Like in a 5 fish tournament, once you hit a certain weight, you can take a moment to breathe and recap and know that you just need like 1 or 2 more bites to put it away. Like in a tournament like today or yesterday, there was it was full go the whole time. You could not waste a second. And that's not true. Yeah, and I think that's what played into this tournament, Hoosier Hook Setter, is that we had some fish almost coming up a couple weeks ago. Then it got cold. It held them back. And I think we got multiple waves coming up at the same time. And it was amazing how many fish. How many fish per hour. So we'll get to that. We'll come back to that. We'll talk about the stats later, Clay. Minimum weight was 1 pound, Clay. So prep for the tournament. I knew that I needed to have multiple rods, multiple setups, so I could be efficient, right? So I rigged dozens of rods. And like I had 2 stupid tig rods, two stupid tube rig rods, 2 drop shots, a Ned, some backup rods in case I couldn't see them. I had like a fluke and a plopper for covering water. I had a Texas rig rod in case I needed to pitch into a tree to get one out with heavy line. Like very specific rods for very specific things. So like my main thing was a stupid tube. If I could get them to bite that on 18-pound line, right, I could get them in and boat flip them or manhandle those fish. That was my first choice on fish. And if I couldn't get them to eat it in 1 or 2 flips, or they were picking it up and carrying it off by the tails, then I would switch to the net or the drop shot pretty quickly. Wacky rig on in case there was fish that preferred that. So I had like a handful of things. And like literally, if I 2 or 3 flips, if I couldn't convert that fish, we were switching baits. So there was prep, and then I needed redundancy on those rods. I had like a dozen stupid tubes rigged for the first half, which was probably I should have had more in reflection. I wish I would have rigged 3 stupid tube rods. I actually also wish I maybe would have went with an exposed tube that maybe would have tore up even less, and maybe that would have been more efficient. Um, so, but also a lot of these beds are around very snaggy things, like wood. Like a lot of them would spawn next to stumps and logs or big boulders. So sometimes the net or the exposed rig tubes would be less efficient, and you get hung on things. I like the stupid tube up there. So, anyways, blast off. Get to my spot. I think I get up on the boat, like on the deck, 707, positioning myself, you know, kind of getting pulled up where my first couple dots are. Get up where I can kind of see the glow of like the stump or the boulder or stuff where these three fish like are sitting next to each other. Um, and as I'm getting like my rod ready to make, like I make a like flip off the left, just kind of make sure the rod's ready. And as I'm making my first casts at like 707, right, I catch one on the first cast, and it's like almost a 3 pounder, a 3 pounder. Uh, and he puts it in and it's already having like issues connecting on maybe we get the first one in the app. I don't remember, but he's like, we're 8 minutes in. I've got a fish in the boat. I fished for 1 minute. And he's like, there's already 125 or 250 fish in the app 8 minutes into the tournament. And I'm like, wow, like, wow. I mean, so there was probably people that had, a lot of people that already had 3 or 4 fish. I mean, 67 anglers. So on average, when I got to my first spot, and we could all drive, we could only all drive 55 miles an hour. Everybody already had 2 fish on average by the time I made my first cast. Um, yeah, I think it's good to hear kind of because I think these are some of the lessons learned from this tournament. Um, the so I catch like I catch one, the second one, like he swims across the stump. I set, and he like gets tied up in the stump, and he shakes free. So then, like, I go to the third one, catch that one, then loop it back and recatch the one I lost. And I have like 3 for like 8 or 9 pounds, like 3 good fish in the first handful of flips. And then it's like moving down the bank to the next cluster. Uh, so, but it was hard to understand where I was because we weren't entering. And he's like, well, the top 10 guys have, 20 fish, and you've got 20 some fish, so you should be close to the top 10, right? Like, but they weren't adding up, and he didn't have time to update or like do the math, right? Because like he's fighting with the app trying to get it to take the fish, and then every time, like every few minutes, I'm interrupting him, right? Like, oh, we got another one. And a lot of times it would be like I'd go, transitioning between spots. I might go a few minutes without catching a fish, but then I might catch 3 in like 5 minutes. Like I'd have a cluster where I'd be like, flip to that light spot, catch one, weigh it, get it, photo, all that stuff, release it, initial the card, and then I'd be like, there's the other one, flip. He swims off with it, just had the tail, flip back in there, catch him. Like it was like when it would go down, there'd be flurries. Um, but the it was pretty intense knowing that they were catching them that fast on gas. And early in the day, there was a fish I needed because I think that fish that I broke off or that like got snagged on the stump, I had to switch to a drop shot to catch it because it was kind of like on ease. And I tried to boat flip it, and I snapped my rod, so I had to go to my backup drop shot rod. So that happened early, cost me a few minutes. Um, there was a pocket that I got into, and then where the fish acted a little weird, and I think Noah Schultz might have just been in there because he was fishing another set of boulders that I wanted to fish where I had like 3 or 4 good fish clumped up. And when I drove by, and I went into this pocket, fish acted really weird, and I spent too long before that, there was a fish that I lost that I tried to recatch, and I probably spent too long on that one. I think I did catch that one. And then there was one that I hooked on the outside of the head that I released because we were bed fishing. So he was, I didn't go Jeff Sprague and unhook it next to the boat and hide it from the camera. I released it, and then I tried to fish for it for a while, and he was around there, and that was a mistake. I should have, like, if I couldn't have caught him in like 3 to 4 flips, maybe 5. And so that wasted time, and I regret that. And then there was another one that I jumped off that I probably spent too much time on. And then I got in that little cove where it was Noah or somebody else must have been in there, because those fish in practice were quick to jump on the bait, and they acted really weird and were skittish, like they had just been caught. And I tried to work them, and I went like 15 minutes without, or 20 minutes without a bass in that pocket. And that was probably a huge mistake, because once I got around the corner into an area that was like less obvious spawning habitat, it wasn't a pocket, it was like a main lake stretch, but it had the right stuff, and I had really good density and good quality in there. Once I got around the corner from those skittish fish, this is why I'm almost certain they were caught, that I just like started one casting again. Like, I got on that corner after that 20-minute lull where I probably fell like 10, 20 spots without catching a fish. What's up, Kevin? Congratulations to Hunter over on TikTok. I just started like boom, boom, like another flurry. Like, I caught like 15 pounds in 5 minutes. Like, I hammered some good fish. And so there was a couple things in that first half. And then once I got on that stretch, I mowed them down. But if I could have got off those fish, I had another pocket coming up that I would have didn't get to at the end, that had another 10, 15 fish in it, that I probably would have, definitely would have broke 100 pounds in the first half. So, and then not knowing exactly how long it would take me to get in, I probably could have stopped and caught one more fish somewhere. But if you're late getting in at the half, you have to sit in timeout in the second for every minute you're late. So it's a dangerous game. But I think I got in like 4 to 5 minutes early. And it's a little weird because you can only drive 55-mile-an-hour speed limit because of the marshals and the safety and just how they run the tournament. So, and I didn't know exactly, it wasn't like a straight line, so I couldn't just drop my GPS. I probably should have done a better job of timing it in the morning, Brett, because I probably could have pulled into a cove and caught one more fish, but I would have had to catch that fish and weigh it and run in. So I am starring these questions and these comments to get back to them. At the end of the first half, we get in, and I'm like jacked, jittery, right? Like, we just caught in the first half, I had 42 bass in the first 4 hours, which wasn't even 4 hours because I didn't get to my first spot till like 7:07. Then I got back in by 10:55. And they weighed right around 90 pounds. So I had like just over a 2-pound average, which was way better than a lot of people. A lot of people were catching more fish than I was, but their average was like 1 pound, 5 ounces. And I was already thinking, like, my marshal's got to go up, and he's got to go register all these fish and get them turned in and work this out with the staff, because, only 19 of my 42 fish got registered in the app. So we had to make sure we got that data in. And so I'm like, Caleb, you got to like get a bottle of water, bring a banana or a sandwich or a snack with you, because we're not going to have a lot of time. And I need you like energized, refreshed, focused. So make sure you are drinking and eating something while you're taking care of this, because we may not have time. So I sent him off to do that. Like, he's supposed to do that. I shouldn't say sent him off. And he's taking care of that stuff. And I immediately, like, I have a sandwich in the cooler, and I'm sitting like where I am now, right here. And I've got my sandwich laying on my pile of like shredded stupid tube that are torn up and need to be re-rigged. And so I've got my sandwich here and my rod's out, and I'm retying and re-rigging, and I'm redoing like another dozen stupid tubes, and I'm putting smelly jelly on them, and my sandwich tastes like garlic, smelly jelly bass stuff. And I'm like, bite a sandwich, rig a tube, drink a water, bite a tube, like rapid fire, trying to, because we get 30 minutes to eat, drink, prep, because like you can't go back out and retie stuff. Like I had pretty much decimated all but 2 of the tubes I had rigged. And so I had some tackle adjustments to make and things like that. And I brought out another rod and rigged up a third stupid tube, so I didn't have as much time retying, because that's another thing in the first half. Like I had to retie the stupid tubes several times, even though they were pre-rigged, or they'd get nicked, or the line would get scraped on a boulder. And so I was like, one more rod could probably save me 5 or 10 minutes, which could be 2 or 3 bass, right, in the second half. So like, and they're literally like, all right, we're getting ready to roll out. And I'm like, running up to the bathroom to go use the bathroom quick. Run back, get in the boat, and we blast off. And I'm not even sure where I want to go. and I'm not even sure exactly where I'm in the standings, because I didn't have really time to look at the app. I don't know who else had fish entering problems. I knew I wasn't leading. I knew there was people that caught over 100 pounds, and I knew I had about 90. And so like I go out, and I decided to fish close. So in the first half, I went as far as I thought I could to fish my fish that I wanted to fish, and worked back towards the ramp. And in the second half, with the free run time, I started close to the ramp and then worked my way away from the ramp, because I knew I had free run time coming back. So I started close in a clear pocket just outside of the casino, and I caught like 12 fish in the first little bit. It was they weren't big ones, but I was on a good pace. And then I got hung. Well, there was a fish I lost that I kept fishing for that slowed me down for a few minutes. And then there was one that if you've ever been to Vermilion, they have these like rail systems that go into boat ramps that the fish get on all times of the year, but they like to spawn on. And a fish wrapped me on it just deeper than I could reach. And I spent way too much time to get the fish unwrapped, and I ended up having to break it off. So that was, I'm not sure how long. It probably might have been close to 10 minutes. That was dumb. I should have broke it off. It was like a 2-pounder. And then while that was happening, a guy came in and caught a couple easy fish down in the pocket next to me. I went over there and I caught a couple, but then I also spent some time trying to fish for those fish that were a little hesitant. So that whole hung up fish, putting me behind, probably cost me at least 15, maybe 20 minutes, where I really didn't catch much in that first half. So I started out good, hit a lull, probably dropped way down the leaderboard. Then I ran to an area, that first place that I found in practice, and it's a stretch that I've caught fish before, not spotting, but the water was dingy in there, and I knew they were still spawning, and there's probably some staging stuff, but you weren't sight fishing them. You couldn't see the beds. And I probably started a couple docks too far one direction where it wasn't good before I got into them, so that wasted a few minutes. But then I got in there, and it wasn't fast and furious, because I didn't know where everyone was, and I had to kind of like hit the posts on the docks, the high percentage ones where they met shore. They were definitely a lot of them were towards the end of the docks, inside, right up against the bank. But in there, it wasn't as rocky, so I could see some of them. I started seeing some of the beds in the boat lifts, and you'd see the fish in there. And I don't know if people fished there, or that was pressured, or I got beat up in practice, but even on perspective mode, I would have to make several casts to these fish to get them to bite. And as the day got on, like I ended up using the Ned more than the tube when the fish seemed to get tougher to catch, which takes longer to land. But I really grounded out in there, and I wasn't catching them as fast there. I only caught 32 fish in the second half, or 31. But I had a lot of 2.5 to 3 pounders in the second half. And even in the first half, I had My average fish was almost 2.5 pounds or 2.3 pounds for the tournament, whereas like the field average is 1 pound 5 ounces or something, or 1.5. So like, I think I did the calculation that my average fish was 0.7 pounds bigger than the field average. So even though I only caught 73 bass, that basically added 51 or 52 pounds to my total just based on average size bass. So they don't have all the details out in the number of bass caught, but I bet you I'm the lowest total that cashed a check by a decent amount. Um, but so it was good. And then I got to a place where there was a break and I could have went around the point, but I decided to go back in this other area. And those fish were acting weird, like maybe somebody fished them. I had like 4 fish in a row swim off with my bait. I'd set the hook and I wouldn't, and this is another area that I couldn't see the fish, and they wouldn't rebite. I cast back in there with a tube or a net or a Senko, and they wouldn't get bit. And so that I had another like 10-minute stretch back there where I never got up. I couldn't get a bite. And then I got a little flurry at the end. There was a fish or a guy that pulled in front of me who was in like 60th place. He caught like an almost 4 pounder in front of me. And I was like, dude, like you're that far down the field. You see somebody coming at you. Like, why don't you just get out of the way? Anyways, I mean, I'm sure he didn't know I was doing well in the tournament, but anyways, but I got a little flurry there on a plopper and a fluke. There was this rock bank, and I don't know if they were betting on there or just staging on there, but in practice, I found them kind of wadded up on that little bank. And so I kind of communicated with the guy that, hey, I'm just going to work this little 50-yard stretch. So if you want to buzz around me, go ahead. But like I'm staying right here. And I ended up catching like 2 or 3 fish in the last 5 minutes. And I made a cast after the GPS went to 329 and worked my fluke. I think it was my second cast after the GPS went to 329. And I'm working the fluke, and all of a sudden I see it like disappear, and I give it a second, make sure and I hit it, and I just like Jake Lawrence, right, winching that. I mean, I didn't even play it. I just like reefed on it and flipped it in the boat, and I looked down, and it still said 329 because you have to be over the gunnel before it says 330, and it was like a 210. It was a nice bass, and that was awesome to basically have a buzzer beater. That was pretty jacked. That should come across in the tournament video. But yeah, so a lot of excitement at the end. It felt like I was really slipping, but then I finished strong and caught like 4 or 5 keepers in the last 10 to 15 minutes, which without those fish, I probably don't make the money. Let me check out some of these starred questions here. So yeah, I think it ended up being like 7.5 or 73 fish. 73 fish in 8 hours, right? That's closer to 9, right? One every 9 fish per hour. Yes, the mainly the horseshoe stupid tube. So that was one of the things that I did before I went up there. Is I because at the Mississippi River St. Jude tournament, I didn't have the tube hooks I wanted in my box. So I made sure for this tournament I built myself a stupid tube box with all AJ's heads in here, um, all sorted out into compartments. Um, so, but I don't know. I might need to replenish. AJ, I went through some this week. So yeah, I made a special box of just stupid tubes, which a video coincidentally just came out on Monday, uh, re-explaining the stupid tube. I did an updated video on that. I'm gonna get out a couple rods and reels here to talk about some of the setups. That's kind of the reason I also went in the boat, was to be able to pull out some stuff. Mainly 3/16 out, some a so you got to put a little lubricant on the hook when you do it, Kyle. It's key. Yeah, I might have to do some time warp just with all the fish catches, to be honest. Yeah, AJ's the man. He's been pouring tube jigs a lot lately, I think. Yeah, so the intensity of when it wraps up, and then they go dark for the last hour. So the app dogfish, but you can't see what you have. You can't see the leaderboard anymore. The public can't see it. So that's new this year. And so I knew I would like it's there were, but he's like I was hanging around the all second period, and then I had that lull, and then I had that flurry, and I really didn't know how it ended up. So there's like the intensity of like having to catch them so fast and be locked in and not waste any time. There's this dark period. You come in, you don't know whether you made a check, where you finished up. Um, then there's the getting your name called for the check, excitement, doing interviews, talking to people at the end, and then driving home. Like so, you're like locked in. Well, and then there's like these long 13 days of practice, and you're getting to bed at 10, 11 o'clock and getting up at 4 or 5 in the morning every day. So it's a long week, and then it culminates in this like sprint. Uh, and yeah, exhausting. I didn't get home till 11:30 last night. I got home at about 10:30. By the time I got the boat put away and went to bed, it was 11:30, and I just zonked. And I slept till like almost 8 this morning. Jax on Instagram. Bass are coming up. I need more worms for wacky. Dingers, Senkos, Maxent Generals, all good ones, I think. I only caught one walleye in practice when I was looking for pre-spawn fish with a jerkbait. I did spend some time keeping pre-spawn fish in practice, honest, with like jerkbaits and hair jigs and some of that stuff. And I caught some fish, but it was clearly not the deal. But like you don't catch like normally fishing for smallies, I catch a decent amount of walleyes in Vermilion, but with the spawn being on, that wasn't really a thing. Um, yeah, bring it on, J Dub. Yeah, I would try it every time I would like fast idle to a spot, like between clusters of beds. I would try to chug some water in my jug that I kept next to the steering wheel, and then I tried to drink a bunch of water um, during the break. Yeah, I can share the results here in a second, Nick. I'll bring those up. Yeah, I don't know. You're all out of tube. We should be pouring them right now while you're watching, AJ. I might need a restock, AJ. I got a little low this week. Uh, no, I mean, like, I wouldn't know without you don't know the cutoff until before the tournament. It was definitely more effective to be spending my time looking for bedfish than worrying about catching somebody else's because you didn't really know which ones you'd end up being on. All right, yeah, this is the same. I think there's the same question over on Instagram, right? Yeah, wacky worms. I mean, the Senkos are probably the a tip for you, JRN 0304. And this was, I didn't end up catching a ton of fish on the wacky worm, but to me, to save worms, especially if you go with Senkos and things like that, get the Arsenal wacky system where you can use these bands, and they got colored ones, clear ones, chartreuse ones, green pumpkin ones. For a couple bucks for these tools, it'll save you a ton of Senkos and things like that. You just use these to slide on, and then basically you end up with a wacky worm like this. Um, and you can see there's a band right in the middle, and I hook right through it like that, and that keeps them on there. I did end up catching a lot of fish on Senkos in the tournament I did in practice, but I ended up trying the talisman hook that with the weedless that uh whoa Easton Fothergill told us about from Ryugi, and the few fish I did catch absolutely pinned on that. Um Moji should be good down there. Clubber tournament. AJ's out of Nebraska, not far from like Omaha. Striking Ochos, those are good too. All right, Tom. Have a good one. Thanks for stopping in. Yeah, Travis. AJ's falling off the yeah. Come on, AJ. Stearman needs him. All right. Let's take a 1-minute break. I'm gonna come back and I'm gonna go through the rod setups and also show the actual results that Nick asked for. So give me 60 seconds.
Are you ready to reel in your next home purchase or refinance? Supreme Lending's Dream Team can help guide you through the entire mortgage process from pre-qualifying
Why is this not working?
to closing. We have a wide variety of home loan programs in our tackle box, including down payment assistance and first-time homebuyer options. You can ask HellaBass. He trusted us to help finance his home. Contact the Dream Team today by searching Supreme Lending Dream Team or click the link below in the description or scan the QR code on your screen.
All right. Shout out to the Dream Team for supporting the channel. If you guys need something, check them out. Aaron is a former classic bass champion sewer angler as well. Yeah, if you've been here for a while, hit the thumbs up. Yeah, the Sticko's good too. In this tournament, when every bite counted and I wanted to make sure they got it, I used the Max Scent General mostly on my wacky fish. Clay, I actually have a big Senko mold. I should show it to you. I would part with it if you wanted it. I mean, I would sell it to you. I'm not going to give it to you. But should we do the results first or the rod setups first? Jay Pittman on Instagram, what popper do you fish? I fish the Yellow Magic mostly, my favorite popper, which is really similar to the Rico. The full-size one, the bigger one. Setups first. All right, Kyle has spoken. All right. So this was kind of a bigger deal in practice for some of the really shallow beds that ended up not going to this area where they were. But a wacky rig with a band, 5-inch, Sticko, Dinger, Senko, Fury 703. I ended up going straight 30-pound braid because these fish were pretty dumb, and I was also throwing around a lot of wood and docks and things like that, and I figured I just didn't want to mess with the leader. So Fury 703, Daiwa 4000 Fuego, straight, probably like 30-pound braid and green braid. And that's why I put green braid on my Senko wacky rig rod, because I know sometimes I'm not going to put a leader on it, and I don't want bright pink or bright fluorescent green on this rod, because sometimes I fish it without a leader. And then I got the 1/0 Ryugi wacky rig hook. I was using up my crappy VMC kind of circle wacky hooks, and they worked really good because I could like shake the fish off and let them jump off. Hook them so bad. So this was kind of a side setup. I got this one handy. I caught a lot of fish on this setup. The Cadence 712 primary Ned rod. So I probably got 10 or 12-pound high vis braid here, and I went to moderate length, like a 6 to 8 foot, 12-pound fluoro leader. So I went with much heavier leaders. Like instead of an 8, maybe a 10-pound leader, I went to 12-pound, because I wanted to be able to not retie as much, hopefully not break off, and be able to swing bigger fish by going to a 12-pound leader. That's all part of the efficiency. So, and then also light as possible. Like in theory, I would want to go to the heavier to be more efficient, but the place is so snaggy. So to me, the lighter Ned is really key. So I went the 10th ounce Arsenal Chartreuse tungsten. He's not showing the greatest in the light here. But better look at that. And I think this is the 2-aught version. I think so you can get the bigger versions. I like the bigger hooks. I'm not one of those people that's 6-pound line, stretchy little light wire hook. And and I like the chartreuse because it's easy to see that head, and I think the smallmouth react to it, and it gets them fired up. Kind of like how Zona talks about the siren color for spawning smallmouth. So the chartreuse head helps me see it, helps the fish see it, and then I went with kind of a baby bass colored Ned BLT from Crush City. So that's kind of an elastic material. So I used one all day, even though I caught dozens and dozens of fish on this. This was mainly for shallow small fish that I could see. That was worried that if I could see that it was to 1.5-pound bass and it was super shallow in a clean area, I would definitely throw the Ned first. But if I was having fish that were being picky, or they would swim off the tube and I would miss them, or they were couldn't get them to bite, I would go to this. So this ended up probably accounting for, I don't know, at least a third of the bass that I weighed. Once I rewatched the tape, I might have a better idea, but this was definitely and I don't think I ever lost a fish on the Ned. I pinned them with the Arsenal Deadly Nedley really well. So if you're looking for a better Ned and a tungsten Ned with a really good hook, the Arsenal Ned, you can use code HellaBass15, save yourself 15%. You can also get them at Tackle Warehouse if you frequent there. But the Arsenal Ned was good, and it played for many of the top 10 or top catch. I think there was 5 or 6 of us that got checks on the Arsenal team, and almost all of us were catching them on the Deadly Nedley heads. So not just me. The braid is some braid that's probably at least 3 to 5 years old. Could be Sunline, could be Strike King, could be Power Pro, could be J braid, but it's probably a 12-pound braid, high vis. The 12-pound fluorocarbon was Sunline Assassin because that's what I had handy. So that was a big player. Another small player for a few fish. In practice, it seemed bigger when I was messing with fish. And on the St. Jude, it was a big deal for those harder to catch fish. Every once in a while, I'd have to bring out the baby tube on a drop shout. So I put a 1/4 ounce Bass Tech tungsten, probably a 12-inch leader. And then I used, this reminds me, I need to order more of these. So a number 4 Redline Nico hook, and it's got a little tied on floral barb, which locks this tube on there. And I thread the tube on there. So if they get past the tentacles, they're basically getting straight hook. So for fish that wanted something that's shaking in their bed off the nest, this got me a few fish. It wasn't a huge player. Most of the fish seemed to be defending down in the nest, but when they get a little later in the spawn and they're more guarding fry, this little natural colored tube is really good. It's like a little baby bass or a perch, and it's bright enough that I can see it, but natural enough that it still looks like a bluegill or a perch or a minnow to a fish. So once they feel like they're protecting eggs against something raiding it, this takes over. The fish were pulling up so fresh, it seemed like a net or a tube was better for this. But this is, yeah, I don't change braid ever until basically it gets too low, Kyle. I mean, I've got braid that's probably older than my Marshall, just about. Yeah. If you go back and watch my St. Jude video, that's what I caught all those big 3 and 4 pound smallmouth on the second day of the St. Jude tournament. And it's good for largemouth too. It's a deadly bed fishing bait. All right, so the main deal, let's pull out the cadence so I can get this sent off to warranty. It happens. You put a nick in a rod, you both flip a fish, you're gonna break them eventually. But Dobbins has got good warranty, so it happens. All right, so the main thing I had two of these rods rigged up. One must be under my butt. This is my older Dobbin 743. This is the older gen model. And this has got the stupid tube on it. So 18-pound Sunline shooter, straight fluoro, rigged up the stupid tube. And this was my main thing here. This one here is an X-Zone tube. So some of them were the X-Zone tube and some were the coffee tube. And this one's chewed on. This is one of the ends. This is a green pumpkin blue. But this was my main workhorse for skipping. This also skips around docks and boulders. So when I'm throwing at fish where I'm not sure where they are, how thick the cover is, or there's fish tight to stuff, this is really good because I've got to horse them out and I can get the bait in and out there without hanging up. I have not tried I tried the fuzzy dice a little bit on leech last year. I do not have any koikis. I thought about making some dice for this tournament on a drop shot for betting. I actually bought the needles, the threading needles off Amazon, but I haven't got around to it. Here's what's left of my bag of stupid tubes. I had 10 or 12 plus 3 on my rods, and I got down to 2 again at the end of the half. You can see they're lubed up with bait fuel and smelly jelly. A combo platter. Where's my other jug? I thought there was a jug in here. But just another extra confidence to get them rigged up. I mean, just to know what my hands thinking, I'm going to grab some that are not all sauced up. Well, my bag's empty. Yeah, I guess I went through almost 3 bags of tubes. Pretty nuts. So here's the Pro Formula smelly jelly that I was mixing on there, the Pro Guide formula, and then a little bit of bait fuel, I guess, mixed in there. Make them all slimy. So this is one of the colors. I'm not sure. It's like a brighter green popper color. Wish I had my webcam because I better. I'll put photos up on like Facebook and Instagram of this. So this is like a watermelon copper. It's like a little brighter green. And then this is X-Zone color. It's more like a perchy color. Caught a lot of fish on that. And then the green pumpkin blue X-Zone tube. So these 2 X-Zone tubes and this Strike King coffee tube. X-Zone, Strike King were the tubes I was using. 2.5 inch. Both of those tubes are pretty good thin-walled tubes that work really well for the stupid tube. And so you can see the stupid tube is basically a Texas rig tube. If you want more details, there's a video that dropped on Monday on how this is rigged. And AJ's weedless tube jig head is the best hook I have found. I had a hydrowave on the Bass Cat, and I have one over in the garage here, but I don't have it hooked up on the Bass Cat. And I bought some bait fuel. I'm not a big necessarily a believer, but I just always like splash some sauce on my when I pre-rig stupid tubes or certain baits for tournaments. It can't hurt, right? I'm not saying the bait fuel was the key, but when a fish picks it up, if it tastes natural, feels natural, whatever, if it hides your scent, it can't hurt. Toxins, I'm not active. Oh my gosh. Vermilion, Tower, Minnesota, Aiden, Vermilion Lake. AVD fish sticks. Okay. How long do you have the hooks pre-rigged with the stupid tubes? Does it rust? I mean, honestly, I've had them in bags over the winter and I've not had them rust out. I've got a mixture of full cork and I think my other one is split grip. I don't. It doesn't really on normal rods. It doesn't really bother me that much. I guess both my 743s are full cork, um, but split grip would be just fine with me. It's just probably what they had in stock when I got them. So there's another stupid tube rod, and then I ended up doing one on the 744 as my third um, rod. I did catch a couple fish on the smaller, and it was decent for finding fish in practice, covering water. This small white river sea plopper, and I ran this on a 703 Sierra on braid with a short, like a 12 inch, 20 pound mono leader. I switched out and went with upgraded trebles for the tournament, and I did catch one or two keepers at the end of the day on this in the tournament that probably mattered. But in practice, it was a good search tool, especially in dirty water or where the pollen was getting blown in shallow. It was almost like a mat, almost like duckweed, but thinner. And it seemed like some of the smallmouth would get up under that pollen. And this plopper was a good way to find them. So that was interesting. So 703, actually 733, braid, like probably 30 or 40 pound braid to a short 17, 20 pound leader for that. Then in a little bit in practice, the hair jig. I used my new Caden 610-1 minnow rod to throw a hair jig a little bit and caught some fish in practice. It's more of a pre-fishing rod. Never took it out of there in the tournament. I know some guys caught them in the tournament, but I just thought the hair jig was way too slow and not efficient in the tournament. Yeah, I've got some liquid mayhem in the boat. Black Chapo. Yeah. I think the black or white Chapo both would have worked. Look, Tom, you're back. The old bang, I got some bang too. I got it all. Uh what hooks did I use? Oh yeah, here's so one of the colors of watermelon gold copper was one of the Straight King colors, and then the Ned BLT was the baby bass. The hooks that I switched out to, I think were number fours. I think it must be this pack. Amakari treble? I don't know what the frick that is. I don't feel like that's. I don't even remember buying these. Ichikawa. The Ichikawa number fours, which is a little bit heavier wire. That's the ones I put on the plopper. That little baby plopper. They were the first number fours I found in my box. I mean, I got Ichikawas. I've got the Hayabusas. We've got Gamakatsu trebles. There's the lighter wire. So yeah, we got a variety. I'm not like tied into any one treble. I'm sure I got some owner trebles in here as well. And then the other thing that I caught a couple bass late in the day on that might have got me the check, it was a good search bait in practice, was a fluke. And I mean, crazy here, right? Like about as old school as it gets, a Zoom white super fluke. Just and I painted a little chartreuse on the head in the tournament. But I actually used the core tackle scamper rig, and I tried it first time. And this one's worn out. This one caught quite a few fish. It's kind of torn up, but it really keeps the fluke on there, and it's got a good action and a good hook. And it basically fishes like an exposed tube. but it basically is like the old Matt Becker fluke that he used on Murray to win, where he wrapped wire around a straight shank hook and then basically rigged it on the fluke, like that, where it's exposed. But this, they mold right on the shank of the hook, the lead keeper, and this thing had really great action and it locked it. So they have the Scamper rig at Omnia. This, if you like a fluke, definitely try a pack of the Core Tackle Scamper rig. Like, it was legit. And I was boat flipping 3-pounders with this. Now, where it gets a little weird, and you just thread it on like this. This one's pretty shredded, but you just basically thread it on, and I did a bad job of it, but like you just thread it on there, and it has a nice swimming action, and it's not super heavy, but super light. So what I had handy when I tied it on in practice was my Ecstasy 755. Not the ideal tube fluke rod, but it had heavy line, and I could boat flip them, and I could cast a long ways with it. So, do you need a $900 rod and reel combo to throw a fluke? No, but that's what I had it tied on. So that's the setups for all the fish in practice, basically. We got a couple on a jerkbait, 110 in the classic color, the baby GP or whatever. There was a couple guys that were up there from Arkansas that I ran into in practice, and they picked a great week to go on there. Them old boys were hammering them. So yeah, and if you want to check out the fluke rig, I do have a new code up for June for Omnia fishing, that Scamper rig, or any of these. You can get the Exxon tubes there. You can get any of these Dobbins rods there. You can get the flukes and the Scamper rigs. The only thing you can't get there is the horse tackle stupid tubes. You have to go to a Horseshoe tackle to get those. AGL get back to pouring when he gets back from his club derby. But then let's talk about results. Don't want to show the flukes to the local buzzards. All right, I got results here. So here is. Let me see. I can make this a little. Oh, that probably not as good. All right, let me pull up my other screen here. Sorry, TikTok, you can't see it. I'll try to read it so you can hear it. I need my other window so I can scroll this. So, 67th place, 18 pounds. So, 67 boats. You can kind of see to make the top 50 out of 67, you needed almost 70 pounds. I mean, in most of these tournaments, 50 pounds would get you paid, and it doesn't barely get you out of the bottom 5 or 10. To make the top half of the field, 33rd, you needed 108 pounds. And this guy, Tony, had the big bass of the event, which he caught in the last 10 minutes on a hair jig, I guess. 108 pounds to finish in the top half. So that means you're catching, I don't know how many bass that is, but you're basically catching, so more than 10 pounds per hour, right? 15, 12, 13 pounds per hour of fish. Make the top 20. Dean Capper had 144 pounds. Didn't get a check. Daniel Fabiano, 130 pounds. No check. My buddy Kevin from lacrosse, 126 pounds. No check. Jim Moyna, 122 pounds. 27th place. 17th place, last check, 154 pounds and 5 ounces. There's me, 16th, 161 pounds. And then it was really tight right in here. So this makes me regret some of my decisions, of like waiting too long to break off that fish, fishing for fish that, wouldn't bite right away, or that I lost and tried to recatch. Like, one more fish moves me up to 13th. If it's not even a 2-pounder. 3 or 4 fish, I'm in the top 10. So If I could have got to that next little section with like 15 minutes of time in the first half, I could have been over 100 pounds and probably finished in the top 10. But where it really got crazy, right, is in the top four, where four guys broke 200 pounds, and the winner had 282, which was an all-time record. I think actually Nathan Nipper and Hunter both broke the record. So pretty crazy stuff. I'm not sure how many bass because usually in the app it shows how many bass. Yeah, and that was 73 fish. So I think it comes out to be 2.3 pounds per average. Yeah, I did not have the density of fish to catch 282 pounds. I did not find them, but evidently there were places where fish were like so thick that it looked like bluegill beds, but smallmouth. And I did not find those colonies, which is what I need to. Uh, so with 1 hour to go, let me see. When it goes dark, I don't think they've got it updated yet. Forget what it was. It was like yeah, I'm not gonna find it here. Might have to say goodbye to the TikTok people so I can use my phone. Goodbye, TikTok. Good night. Um, yeah, 162 viewers and 3 new followers on TikTok. It's really exciting. Did not make 19 cents though. 1 day of fishing, yes. Every fish counts. What's up, Dave? Welcome back, Clay. Yeah, thumb being raw. So I will say that was one of the things. Like people are complaining about their fish, their hands bleeding, and my thumbs did get roughed up. They don't work on my phone for print and stuff, but I wore my Arsenal gloves all day because I knew I was going to be grabbing so many fish and grabbing braided line. And like, I got one little cut right on the edge of my glove, but these were a godsend when catching 73 keepers plus some shorts plus some pike. Like, take care of your hands. These gloves are super light, super comfortable. They dry out. They've got grippy palms. They don't make your reels slippery. Um, invest. They're awesome. Best gloves I've had. I like them both. They're just different. We talked about that earlier. Both five fish, and it just needs more practice for the every fish counts. The bass palm is good, but like I didn't want any downtime. I didn't want like any soreness. I wanted to like go after these fish, and if I grabbed them on their gill plate that was sharp, or didn't want to worry about catching a spine, like you had to be so fast all the time. I didn't want anything slowing me down. Um, that's how we had the heavier leaders on the finesse rigs, like my drop shot, my Neds, those all had like 12-pound line instead of like 8. Um, I had 3 super tube, redundant rods, everything backed up to try to minimize as much downtime as possible. Yeah, I was going to go with the classic Bass app. They did. So when it went dark with 1 hour to go, there was 3,735 fish caught in the first 7 hours by 67 anglers. So 3,335 divided by 67 guys. That's an average of almost 56 bass per 7 hours per angler. So the average angler in this tournament was catching almost 8 bass per hour. I barely was above average at 9, but I had better quality fish. Um, so so the total weight of those fish, 55, 29 plus 159. So 5,688 pounds divided by 37.35. 1.52 pounds per bass. So the average bass was 1.52 pounds across all 3,735 fish in those first 7 hours. Um, so my weight was 116 pounds divided by 73 bass. No, sorry, 100. Is that right? I thought I had it calculated 1.58. I thought I had a better average than that. Weird. Maybe my math was off. Maybe I'm dumb. 42 plus 31. Yeah, I guess mine was only 1.6, just or one. So I guess it was. Yeah, it was point. What I say it was 1.3 better. So I was closer to 1.6. I don't know. Anyways, yeah, that's kind of the stats of the tournament. But yeah, I was slightly above average on average weight. I thought it was bigger than that, but I guess not. I had a lot of 2 to 3 pounders. Doesn't seem right. Maybe I didn't have as many fish in the second half. Maybe I only had 63 fish. No, because I got in the second column and there was 26 fish per column. So yeah, I must have been 73. Anyways, the catch weight release format is good, especially in a tournament like this. So that's the one thing to stress. Like, even though there was like almost 4,000 bass caught, they were all released right where they were caught. So even though most of them, uh, what's up, Epic Eric? Cover my noodle. Is there a noodle in the background? Talking about this, my visor. Um, yeah, they also, even though like probably 80 to 90% of those fish were spawning fish, they all got released right where they were, bedding. Uh, so it's nice. It's nice not having to get your live wells, worrying about, you know, deep hooked fish, things like that, and just getting them back in the water. So yeah, I mean, it's nice to bring in fish for tournaments, and that's kind of fun. That's right. It's 161, not 116. That's 116 in my calculator, and I caught 161. Yeah. Thank you, Hoosier. Uh, yeah. So 161 divided by 73, 2.2. So yes, my average was 2.2. The field average is 1.5. So my average bass was almost 3/4 of a pound bigger than the average. So, that 0.7 times 73 is 51 pounds. And that's where I made up the difference. So hopefully the full results come out with all the fish numbers here in the near future, and you can kind of see that. But I definitely was on a better quality of fish. I just didn't have the density. So, but good tournament. And I had a great time, and I cashed a nice check. It was $2,000 for 16th place finish. Uh, there you go. Tim's a working man. He's got to protect the fish. I like that. Um, yeah. So it was all like other parts of the system, right? Like having good batteries, being able to run for 13 hours a day. The raptors were huge, right? Like I couldn't imagine even fishing this tournament without shallow water anchors. You would be so inefficient. be possible to contend without some kind of shallow water anchors. Uh, having a decent screen up front with a 360, so I can see where the waypoints are, and you can see them right, like it draws a map when you enter the waypoints. So I could see the log, the boulder, and then like to be able to quickly like line them up and catch them. Marrying that up with the perspective mode to extra triangulate them or find the ones that I couldn't see. It was just a full system. Another thing, like small thing here, this year I bought some yellow lens glasses. I compared them in plastic to my other mirrored glasses. I could see so much better in just about any conditions on the sight fishing. These things more than paid for themselves. Uh, we are doing some math, Epic Eric. And these aren't even like super expensive glasses, but I was shocked at how much better I could see the beds, the logs, the boulders, whatever I needed to see, especially in that tannic water up in Vermilion. It was just so many little things stacking up to be able to catch that many fish in that time period and be competitive. So, I mean, most of us probably are not faced with that very often, or maybe never will. But like without that level of preparedness and having the tools, uh, you just couldn't compete. Yeah, those are not. These are Strike King glasses. These are like $25-$30 sunglasses. If they were, they paid for themselves already. Um, I don't know what else. What else did we do? Any questions I didn't answer about the recap from the garage? Any other baits you wanted to see? Any tackle while we're in the garage, since we don't always stream from the garage? Wisco, Minnesota, northern Minnesota, Vermilion. It's like an hour northwest of Duluth, Minnesota, if you know where that is, Eric. So about 2.5, 3 hours north of Minneapolis, like just west of Lake Superior into Minnesota. Uh, Crazy. Like I always knew there was a lot of smallmouth in that lake, and seeing it in that stage where there was multiple waves of fish pent up and they all went to the bank, like it is insane how many smallmouth are in that lake. There literally must be millions. Somebody tells about how the fishing there now after this tournament probably still, is it with 63 or 67 boats? There's so much of that lake we didn't even touch. So I'm sure there's some pockets where you'd go into and the fish would be super weary and hard to catch, but maybe after a day they probably wouldn't be. Yeah, you just got to rewind, Eric. um, and then you can rewatch it at 1.3, 1.5 speed. The big player, the big money makers, Eric, were the stupid tube. So X Zone and Strike King 3.5-inch tubes on Horseshoe Tackle AJ Mendy's custom weedless tube head, and then a little 10th ounce tungsten Ned with a chartreuse head. I know you don't like color contrast and making things unique, with a little Ned BLT Crush City on there. Those were the two things. Upsizing my line to be more efficient, bigger leaders, to manhandle the fish to be more efficient. That was kind of the nutshell. DT's out of the prison. In the St. Jude tube, I've seen a blue-tailed tube. You know who makes that tube? When was I? Did I throw the blue-tailed tube? I don't remember throwing the blue-tailed tube in the video. It's the Mismos, the green pumpkin blue. I don't know if I pretty much throw 3/16 almost all the time. Sometimes I'll throw 3/4 if it's super windy, a lot of current, or I want to go deep. And sometimes if it's super snaggy, super shallow, I'll go 1/8. But 3/16 is my main. That's the thing, is like Vermilion is 3 hours north of the cities. You probably have to drive by 500 lakes to get there. Um, it's kind of remote once you get up there, but the fishing is amazing. Yeah, that tube I only Texas rig. I don't use that for stupid tube. If you were talking about stupid tube, I did not throw a blue tailed tube. Maybe just looked like it. It was a green pumpkin blue fleck. That was an Exo tube. Almost all the fish I caught in the St. Jude were on the Exxon tube. Maybe I threw the Strike King coffee tube a little bit. Yeah, people were buzzing. Even when you'd see them at the docks and stuff, they'd be like, "Oof!" Like it's going to be a smash fest out there. It's going to be a slaughter. It's going to be amazing. But even then, like, I don't think people thought it was going to be quite as even. Like, I think once we started getting into it, like, it was even still surprising how good it was. Yeah, that was a joke about you not believing in the chartreuse heads. I'm aware that you're a fan. I bought some baby blue nail polish or some powder, but I never actually went around to like changing any of my Ned heads. I did watch that. Redheads are crazier for sure, Dustin. Yeah. Let's see. We've been on here for almost 90 minutes. So yeah, last call for like any questions about the tournament or anything else you guys want to talk about. So the next tournament's on lacrosse in like a month. Um, the pink line was fine. I used it on my hair jig rod. Never had any issues, Dustin. But I also didn't think it was like so amazing. I think like the Daiwa sinking braid was just as good. How do I stay composed? I'm pretty even keeled on the water as it is. I think mentally having a plan, being prepared. I mean, I fished these tournaments before years ago, so it's not like it was new to me. I don't know. I think I'm good at like mentally preparing and not getting spun out. Yeah. On the river, every once in a while, I'll flip those tubes for sure, Eric. I mean, I did use the Elastec Ned, so I only used one, Crush City Ned BLT all day. So I used the Elastec for that. I guess I've never really thought about tubes. One thing I wish I would have done, and I rigged it up for the second half, but it wasn't on the right kind of water for it, would be like a jig head menace scrub. Could have been really good. Baby tubes are also something a lot of the top finishers used, and maybe that would have been a little more durable and maybe even not need to be retied as much. But you can't. I don't know if there's really an Elastec tube that I could stupid tube. Like I don't like Elastec when I'm rigging weedless. I only like Elastec when I'm exposed hook. But now we head to lacrosse, where it will not take 250 pounds to win lacrosse, but it still should be a really fun tournament. Um, and it's another thing where you'll have to fish it differently. Like that's the thing about Vermilion, right? Like the prep work and the way the tournament was attacked for an every fish tournament would be nothing like what I would have done for a 5 fish tournament this time of year. Interesting. I'll have to look at the TRD tubes. Looks like my battery is about to die. So because I didn't plug in the laptop. I don't have a charger. So we're gonna wrap this up before my laptop dies. Turn this light off for a second. And thanks everybody that showed up. As always, here to help you guys catch more big less. Enjoy the replay. Hope you guys learned something. And we'll see you next week with another live stream.